So we're taking incoming fire from a distance down the way and we're returning fire. And all of a sudden, I found myself on the floor and I didn't understand what had happened. The machine gun stopped because I was the person operating it and I'm on the floor now. And my friend beside me goes, he's firing, he's going, Chin, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm like looking at him thinking, I don't know. I'm actually quite befuddled. I'm on the floor. I haven't got a clue what's going on. And then we hear like, sip, 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 sip. And that's like, okay, I've been shocked.
Welcome to The Deep Coach, the podcast where we explore the transformational journeys that shape us and that propel us to change the world. I'm your host, Jonathan Edmida, and in each episode, we sit down with those who have journeyed into the depths of spiritual transformation and who are now reshaping the world through their presence and their work. In listening to these incredible human beings, you'll find insight, inspiration, and practical tools that'll support your journey as a coach and as a human being. Today, I sit down with Ricardo Chin, and man, this is such a good episode. Ricardo is a former Royal Marine Commando who deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan during the wars, a transformational coach, an aspiring death doula, and the author of A Few Words from an Absolute Nobody, which we'll dive into why he chose that title, where that title comes from. But this is a raw, beautiful memoir that chronicles his powerful path from street violence to awakening. Ricardo was raised by a single mom in inner city London, and he grew up surrounded by really bad street violence, often carrying weapons with him to protect himself. Eventually, channeling this rage that he had, he enlisted in the Royal British Marines, he went off to war, and he got shot and nearly died. To read and to listen where this man is today, after this life that he came from, it is so clear that he has gone through a deep journey. He really, truly walks the walk. And in this episode, Ricardo shares how war gave him discipline but not peace, how psychedelics helped him face his fear of death, and how he eventually began guiding others through their own transformations, both in life and at the threshold of death. This is such a powerful conversation with so many insights. I hope you enjoy it. Ricardo, it is such a pleasure to be here with you today. And where I'd like to start is I read that you grew up in inner city London to a single mom. You were in a fatherless home. Can you describe what that experience was like growing up in inner city London and the environment that you were in?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I'd like to say thank you very much for having me, Jonathan. So where can I start? I would say it was tough, it's a very loving environment. When I speak of like home, my mum, the attention that she gave us and how she was constantly there for us, having to raise us as a single mother, and not have a father around, obviously presenting its own sort of problems, like financially, I guess. And once I got older, it was the realization that actually, I don't know if poor equipped is the word, but I hadn't had the nuggets of wisdom or the understandings that a father normally bestows on his child, right? So I guess I went out into the world a little bit unprepared. Um, there were times, obviously, whilst growing up, that my mum struggled financially, and so we're talking about sometimes, I guess she didn't know how she was going to put food on the table. And she worked, she worked every day. At times, I remember her having 2 jobs. And so we experienced these times when there might have been no electricity, gas. And there were some tough moments. But what was good was that we always knew that mum was there. Mum was always there for us, regardless, of our financial situation. And when things happen, say something happened at school or that was tough, mum was always there emotionally and taking care of us and letting us know that everything was going to be okay. And I guess in hindsight, I look back on it and it can't have been easy for her. So now I'm older and I understand more. These would have been moments when she was sat down struggling, thinking to herself, so how am I going to provide food tomorrow? How am I going to continue to pay the electric bills, the gas? How am I going to keep a roof over our heads? But as a kid, you don't realize that. You just go out and you're doing all things that kids do. So only as I've gotten older have I become more aware of what my mum would have been going through, what I imagined she would have gone through in their moments. We were naughty kids. Me and my brother, there's only like a year and 2 months between us. So there were moments when we did what boys did. And, and we were disciplined for it. At moments, I would say my mum was quite harsh and generous with the disciplining. So it was, there were moments, and we look back on it now and we laugh. Me and my brother will sit down with mum and we'll say, hey, mum, do you remember this time? Do you remember that time? And we have a laugh. There's no hard feelings because, to be honest with you, I did some stuff that was deserving of a beating and disciplining. And I think if I didn't get disciplined, God knows where I'd be now, because as we grew up and we became teenagers, we began to get into disagreements and, interaction with other young men on the street. And at times there was weapons involved, and sometimes it might have just been like a physical fight. But it was, I think, a lot of the discipline that my mum had instilled in me that helped me through some of these situations. Because there are moments when you just you've had enough. You have these disagreements on the street, and I was tired of it. You want to show these people you want to go at them. And so at times I found myself walking with knives and weapons. We had people come to the house with guns. And in my house, obviously my mum and my little sister, my sister's got 6 years younger than me. So when there's people coming to the house with guns, there's a part of me that is super worried and scared. Not only are we putting the lives of myself and Richard, my brother, in danger, but now my mum and my sister who live at home are now in danger as well. And I guess at that point, there was a part of me that said it's just time to leave, to do something different.
Yeah. And prior to you leaving, you had mentioned that you wanted to inflict suffering back in a world that failed you.
Yeah. So I guess part of me wanting to leave was the fact that I can't be bringing drama to my mum's house when people are bringing guns. I can't imagine what it must be like to be the cause of your mother or your sister being injured in such a way. But at the same time, as I knew I didn't want to stay at home and bring drama to the house like that, there was a part of me that felt, right, I'm going to inflict some chaos on the world, chaos of my choosing, and I'm going to hurt some people. And in my mind, I feel like at that time, the only way I could have done that, and legally, was to join the military. So
naturally. What do you think, now that you're older and you can look back with some wisdom, what do you think was happening in your mind as a young man that created so much anger with the world and with those around you?
I think there was a lot of it. At the time, I was unaware, but I think now I look back on it, part of it was, I guess, not having a father there. Part of it was going out on the street and feeling scared, feeling that, God, I'm going out am I going to run into these boys? What's going to happen? Are they going to come to the house with guns? Am I going to get stabbed? My brother's off over there by himself. I'm not with him. Is he going to get stabbed or shot? It's scary, And so that's what's running through my mind every time. Every time you leave the house, you're like, how can I get to my location the quickest way without going through any route that could potentially see me meeting one of these groups I was in dramas with and having a horrendous altercation, that maybe you don't come back from.
Yeah.
So that weighs heavy on the mind, on my mind anyway.
Oh man, I can imagine. Oh, I can imagine. It's survival. That anger, channeling that fear into anger was the only way that you probably saw at the time that you could survive, right? You needed to meet violence with violence.
Yes,
sounds like.
absolutely. And it was the feeling of, okay, I'm going to do this now, but I'm going to be part of something bigger. Me and this group are going to go out and cause pain.
Mm.
So that was, I can't speak for everybody who joins the military, but that's definitely a massive part of why I joined. That
Meaning,
and
go ahead.
that and to I guess camaraderie,
Mm.
be part of something bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a bit of the, I want to inflict some pain on people. It's not sustainable to do so here in London. Let me go channel this in the military. Was that part of the thinking?
Yeah, and it was more like it wasn't me that was at home wanting to inflict pain on people. It was because we had this group of other boys, which now I understand, I imagine, were other young men who were maybe disillusioned or feeling the same things I was feeling. So they were going out on the roads, trying to inflict their pain. And obviously I go out and we meet each other. There's so many young men like this out there. And so I imagine we meet each other. So that was where it came from. I meet these guys, and then inside of me, this turmoil that I'm constantly feeling, fear, you know, and doubt and worry. I guess that made me think, okay, this is what I'm gonna go and hurt people legally.
Mm. Mm.
At least
Before,
try to.
yeah, before we go into the military stuff, I'm curious to double click on, because there are young men continue to feel displaced, feel lost in this world. They continue to turn to unhealthy means to cope with all that they're experiencing inside. You know, this is an epidemic happening in the United States, in England, all over the world, I imagine.
Yeah.
What do you think you needed as a young man, given the same facts on the table, meaning you were still in the inner city, meaning you still didn't have your dad at home? What do you think, how could the system have supported you in that moment?
It's a tough question. It's hard because I think for me, a lot of the answer is I think a lot of us as young men, we have to drop the ego. And I think a lot of us are only able to do that when you get older. My mum, she gave me so much advice. Would I listen to it? No, because I knew better. What does she know? You know? So I had to go out and learn the hard way, as I do with every lesson in life. I learned it the hardest way possible. And so I think only as I've got older, am I in a place where I'm able to drop the ego and realize when someone looks at me on the street, it's not about me, it's about them, you know? But when you're younger, speaking purely for myself, when someone looks at me in the street, it's like a call to, oh, I'm better than you. And me, obviously, in my mind, I think, no, I'm better than you. Who's going to look away first? Or you get an argument, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But I think a lot of it's coming from a place of fear. So yes, I think what young men need is a group, a space where you can have conversations maybe like what we're having right now, where you can be vulnerable and speak your mind without feeling that someone's going to look at you and see you as weak. We need more role models. We need more male role models to come out and speak openly and vulnerably to allow these younger men that it's not weak to come and talk about what's going on and to share your problems. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. Also, more examples. I imagine if
Yeah,
you were to go into the inner city London and go into a classroom and speak about your journey, the full arc of your journey, that will be inspirational to some kids, right? So folks
yes,
that made it out, going back in and speaking to what they experienced and some of the mistakes that they made and what they would have done differently. I imagine some of that could be inspirational to some of these kids because they don't really have role models, right? Like you said, a lot of these kids come from broken homes, fatherless homes, and that's a big issue as well.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, a lot of it, I never had somebody to tell me, hey, this is how you talk to a woman, or to show me, because she wasn't there. And I was the older brother. So to that end, I wasn't good with women or I guess manning. And so I had no pearls of wisdom to bestow on my little brother. So the cycle just, it self-perpetuates and it continues,
Yeah.
So Yeah.
So then you join the Royal Marine Commandos. Can you tell me about that experience?
So um, originally I joined the TA, the Territorial Army, and I met people there telling me to join certain parts of the army. And then someone came in on a Christmas dinner, and he had just passed Royal Marine Commando training, and he told me he had to run 30 miles in so many hours. He had to do the Tarzan assault course. He had to do these really like grueling things that I just thought, can men even do that? I thought that's what I need to train. That's the man I want to be. I want to do 30 miles in 8 hours. I want to go to war and, be a Marine. And so I guess with that, I was off. I told my mum I was joining the Royal Marines. I think she was like, "Yeah, of course you are." And I went and done it, you know. And even then, my mum would have preferred that I didn't. There she was at the careers office with me, supporting me. And so it was good. But I imagine from a mother's point of view, they're more worried, right? That you're going to go to war and something's going to happen because at this particular time, 9/11 had just happened, so there was a real opportunity of it, which obviously in my mind, I'm thinking, yes, it's go time. My mom's thinking, oh God, no. So yeah, that's what led me to the Royal Marines.
Yeah. What is it like to be in a war zone?
For me, on the lead up to it, I had watched so many war movies, Saving Private Ryan, um, The Thin Red Line, Platoon, just the list goes on and on. And I'm like, young man, you're like, I want to go to war. I want this. And then when I actually got there, it was surreal. The first war I went to, it was Telic One, and it was surreal. It was, jets flying over us, dropping bombs in the distance, tracer fire from left to right, then return fire from right to left. It's like I've watched all these movies and now I'm here. It's wild. It made my problems in London seem so much smaller, you know? And so at my young age, it was awesome to be in a war zone, to have achieved what I set out to do. I'm here now. It was awesome. Meeting all sorts of different people from all over the world.
Yeah. I imagine from a nervous system standpoint, you came from a situation in inner city London where your nervous system was constantly activated. There was danger around every corner. And so in some regards, I imagine that your nervous system was quite acclimated to danger. And so the fact that you now had, buddies around you with weapons and you had weapons, it almost like there could be a way in which that was soothing to your nervous system. And also, you know, because there was a part of your identity that I'm sure identified with fear and danger being around there. So now you had an opportunity to quote unquote defeat it,
Yeah,
in war.
absolutely. Do you know what stands out mostly? It wasn't personal.
Mm.
That's one of the biggest things I think over the years. What got me was on the streets when someone approaches you, it's like, this is about me. They
Mm.
don't like me. And I think I'm a pretty cool guy. I think I'm likable. But these people didn't like me. So, I found that quite harsh. I don't know if that's anything that anybody else experienced. But then when you go to war, it's like, this is cool. It's not about me. You know, it's very not personal. So, and you're not alone. You're not alone in it, which is how I felt with my brother. And like, even though we had friends in there, you feel very alone. But at war, you're with your team, your crew, you're side by side. If you're going through anything, you're going through it together, and you've got each other to lean on.
Yeah. So what were some of the things that not war, I guess the Royal Marines gave you?
It taught me massively cheerfulness in adversity, that equanimity to be able to be in a situation and just breathe, before you get into the panic and before you go full throttle, they call it a condom moment. Just have that moment where you just hit. Obviously, a lot of times these are probably split moments, split second moments, but nevertheless, it's there. It gave me camaraderie. It gave me a sense of belonging. There's always someone to go out on a night with. There's always some friend to just chat to, you know. It gave me a sense of being part of something much bigger and discipline.
Mm. And yet a bit of that toxic masculinity still existed. There was an excerpt that I read that you had been shot, and I'd love to hear about that experience of being shot, and you refused the pain medication because you and a fellow Marine were kind of competing to see like who can sort of grit through it, you know, and take the injury the best. Can you describe that whole scene of getting shot and then that moment?
Yeah. So me and Duffy's his name, and during a beat up training to head out to Afghanistan. This was, so not Iraq this time. This was Afghanistan. We was heading out there, I think late 2006, and we got into this crazy conversation. You know, if you're gonna have a crazy conversation, this is when you're gonna have it. You know, in the services, in the military, getting ready to deploy, and it became about who was the most alpha male. And obviously, I thought it was me. And Duffy was sure it was him. And so we sort of made this bet. Okay, then, whoever's the most alpha male, let's see if one of us gets shot or killed out there, whoever does it the most non-emotional, because doing things non-emotional is one of the biggest things in the Marines. Non-emotional cold showers, non-emotional drinking pints to the death, you know, non-emotional just whatever.
Yeah.
And it was whoever does it the most non-emotional is the most alpha male out of us, if it happens to one of us. Obviously, a part of it in my head was thinking, this isn't happening to either of us. This is a safe bet. And then you go out, you know, we went out, we were in different sections, different companies. And I go out down south one day in a place called Gamzia, and we're just involved in like a chicken contact. Like, so we're taking incoming fire from a distance down the way, and you know, we're returning fire. And all of a sudden, I found myself on the floor, and I didn't understand what had happened. And so I'm laying on the floor, and I was using the GPMG, which is a massive percent of the section firepower, like 70%. You know, and so this is the general purpose machine gun. The machine gun stopped because I was the person operating it, and I'm on the floor now. And my friend beside me goes, he's firing, he's going, Chin, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm like looking at him thinking, I don't know. I'm actually quite befuddled. I'm on the floor. I haven't got a clue what's going on. And then we hear like, sip, 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 sip. And that's okay. I've been shot, which I don't know why it took so long to figure that out. You know, you're in a battle, all of a sudden you're on the floor. It's pretty obvious what's going on. I think it's part of the fact you never think it's going to be you.
Sure.
You know? And so he's like, oh shit, she's been shot. So he's running around, he's dragging me out by my feet. And as he's dragging me out from this bunker that we're in, there's like rounds going over my face. And he's dragging me up by my feet, and I'm on my back, and he's dragging me up by my feet, and I can feel him and hear him. So I turn my face to the side, and as I turn my face to the side, there's this chair that's on Sunday that the Afghan National Police used to sit in, a blue plastic chair. And I'm watching it rattle as the rounds hit it and go into it. And I actually thought to myself, oh shit, just one stray round just to fall a little bit lower, and it could be over. I mean, luckily that wasn't my story. So he pulled me out by my feet, and he got me to a place, then he went to run for help, and I could still hear them. So I'm like trying to like inch myself further away on my shoulder. And then the corporal's come up to me, and he's going, okay, where have you been shot? I'm like looking around, they shut me up, and I'm like, my arm, my shoulder. No, I haven't been shot because I couldn't see anything. And then they look to the back, they cut my top off, they look at the back, and I can hear them go, he's been shot. And I'm like a dog, like with, you know, trying to chase his tail. And in that moment, I think there's like some sort of a sense of disbelief, because when you go out, you never ever think it's going to be you, you know? You always think, well, maybe this is just me, but you always think it's going to be Smudge or Dave you figure out today, like not in a bad way, but I'm invincible. I'm not going to get shot. I just know there's that feeling within me that I'm going to live forever, and I'm the exception. And all of a sudden, I was there on the floor, having been shot, and I was in total disbelief. trying not to show it. And then the doctor comes up, he sort of starts working around me whilst the gunfight has become a lot heavier. There's a lot more incoming coming in, there's a lot more outgoing. And they start trying to take me down. Now, Goz is trying to reach for my morphine in my top left pocket. And he's, I'm saying to him, no, I just remembered. No morphine. Tell Duffy I did it non-emotionally. So that's where that story came from. I wanted Duffy to know that I got shot and I did it non-emotionally. But if I'm completely honest, as it started coming back to me, like, because it's weird, it was blacked out for a little while. And I started remembering what had actually happened. I remember getting shot in the action, oh, like a masculine cry out, like a war cry, not a scream, a male war cry. And I remembered it just like, maybe it wasn't that non-emotional actually. And then, they carried back to me down to the fob where we were. And from there I was carried back to Bastion. Yeah.
Yeah. Incredible. What impact did that moment have on your relationship then to life and to war?
It was an awakening in a way. Firstly, I realized I was no exception from the rule. I can die as well, and I can be injured. I realized, I think I was faced with my mortality. And also part of me thought, it felt a bit personal again. Because I went home, it just so happened that it was on leave. I went to Bastion for 5 days, and then leave was coming up soon after. So I went back to the UK. Loads of women, I woke up in Bastion, and there was loads of like naval nurses around me, and I thought, I know what will sound good. I want to stay. I want to go back. And I thought, yeah, just impress the chicks. Stupid. Didn't impress anybody. And I had to stay out. And then I went home, and I then came back after 2 weeks R&R, which during that time my mum had to pack my wound with this seaweed type things they've got, because when you get shot like that and there's like a wound that opened, it has to heal from the inside out. So she had to pack it with seaweed, because I'd gone to the doctors, but they didn't really know how to do it that well. So I was able to instruct my mum, then she'd done it for me whilst I was at home every 2 days, or I don't remember exactly how often it was now, but she was able to do it, And so what I got from that was, yes, I'm mortal. And also, wow, if I'm really going to put my life on the line, I want to get paid more for it. And so I thought, at that time, you had a lot of people leaving the military to go and do close protection in the Middle East. And so I thought to myself, that's what I'm going to do. Earn more money.
And so you went into private security.
Yeah. So I left and I went to, first of all, I went to maritime security. So I did 2 years on the ship, working in the Indian Ocean, just boarding vessels after vessel. It was good. But also I became aware of a deep loneliness inside of myself during that time. And after 2 years on the ocean, I then went into land security, close protection in Iraq. Yeah.
And what occurred during that time that inspired you then to go to South America in 2019?
So during my time in maritime, I was working with a friend called Craig Williamson. And I'll never forget it. He said to me, we'd always talk shit to shit, we'd be on ships a lot. We got a lot of transits together. We were really good friends, and he's still in my life up to this day. And it just came up. He said, Chin, he said, when I was young, I always wanted to go to Cuba and learn Spanish. He said, I've got a family now, so then plans have changed, But you're a young man, good looking, obviously. And he said, you should go and do something like that. And I just thought, you're up to something. And so I found myself booking a Spanish course in the University of Havana. And I got a phone call from a lady who actually worked in university, and she suggested that I stay with a family because it would help me learn Spanish more. which was right outside of my comfort zone. And I had all sorts of resistance against it to start off with. But then something inside me said, no, it's time to start stepping outside of your comfort zone. So that's what I did. I went to spend 2.5 months in Chiba, studying at university, living with a family. And that's where I began to learn Spanish.
Hmm. And then you had a relationship with South America. Were you traveling back and forth?
Yeah, I really loved Cuba, but it was hard. It was a bit harder. The internet was hard to get hold of and other things, but they're such a beautiful people. And so I went back to Spain a few times. I used to go to I love Barcelona. I went to Madrid. I studied at a school called Forex. And then some friends said, hey, you need to go to Medellin.
Mm.
So I went to Medellin, never looked back.
So did you move there?
I did. As much as you can say you knew somewhere, considering that I worked in Iraq for 8 weeks rotation, then had 4 weeks off, which I would spend in Colombia, and then back to Iraq. So it was this sort of rotation, but yeah.
I see. And then you had a plant medicine experience that really changed you.
Massively. And it is weird the way that things work. I've only become aware of, the interconnectedness of life since doing that journey and everything that's come afterwards. Once you start looking at reflecting on your life, in hindsight. And it's really weird because a friend had come to work and I said to him, how was Lee? And he's staring straight through me like he'd seen a ghost, and he's like, I smoked something called DMT and I met an alien. Not like, he didn't say, I saw an alien. He met an alien. He had an interaction, and it was like that. And something inside of me, I never done anything. I didn't smoke weed. Something inside me said, you need to do this. Weird. So I found myself reaching out to friends in Colombia to see if they knew what DMT was, trying to, get hold of it. And funny thing, none of them knew what it was. So I'd done another 4 weeks at work before I went on leave. I'll go home. I've totally forgotten about it by this time. I'm walking down the street with a really good friend of mine called Derek. He says, hey, I had a really intense experience last night. I smoked something called DMT. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is meant for me. It's like it's falling out to me, So I got the details of him. And if I went to smoke DMT a few weeks later, and it was just wild. I would say what I got from that is that there's so much more to life than I could have ever imagined, that I had to go and explore it even more. And for me, this was the tool. I guess for other people, there's meditation and there's many other ways. But for me, plant medicine was the tool which got me into, I guess, where I am now.
Yeah. And just to share with those that are listening that may not know the difference. So DMT is the psychoactive component of ayahuasca. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of ayahuasca. And typically with ayahuasca, you drink sort of this tea and it's a longer process. But with DMT in particular, when you smoke it in that way, it's an intensive, fairly quick experience, right? It's about 10, 15 minutes that you experience.
You smoke that stuff and you're gone. Like you don't know. It's just, you're gone. The first time I smoked it, what happened was I sat there. I held it to my heart. I said my intention, I'm lost. Please show me what it is I need to see. And then he sparked it. He put it to my mouth. And as I'd done it, I took another pull for 10 seconds. You hold it in. And as I held it in, I felt the only way to explain it is that I felt my soul untethering from my body. My body began to fall back. I got really scared and I reached out to the guy who was facilitating it, and he grabbed my hand and put on there. And as I laid back, my eyes closed, and I felt my hands dissolve into my chest and my body. Then I felt my body just dissolve away. And I found myself in a place that time didn't exist. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know when I was. I was just an awareness. And it was one of the most profound experiences of my life that led me on to then have more.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking through your story and how overly identified you were with the person that you were, and, defending the ego and defending yourself, and then going off to war and trying to show up and all those things, to dissolve all of that, to be free of that, if not for a moment, for anybody is a liberating experience. And I can see how for you, it was just transcendental in every possible way.
Yeah. I mean, it takes it away from you. Fighting, what are you going to fight? There's nothing you can fight. It's
Touching the air.
gone. And the thing is, that's what it's like. But it's like, it's also like, it takes it all away. You have no say in the matter. You smoke, you're committed. And there is fear. There was a voice telling me, you shouldn't have done this. I've told you shouldn't have done this. And now we're going to die. And you believe it. And look, I'm still here now. I didn't die. And it was one of the most powerful, life-changing moments of my life.
Well, caveat, in a sense, you did die. And the thing that happens with plant medicine is that the person that we think we are, the ego dies in that moment, And so, and just something just to speak to here for anybody that might be listening, plant medicines are beautiful and they're a direct way to experience these transcendental states. And very likely, if you're listening to this podcast, you've had some form of transcendental experience outside of that, right? That's what meditation can do. Yoga can do it. There's different, there's these incredible moments that one can have in nature. So there's many different pathways, and plant medicine is an incredible direct way to experience that which is not easily accessible in regular states of consciousness.
Absolutely. And it's not going to be for everyone. Meditation is not going to be for everyone. Breathwork's not going to be for everyone. I guess you have to find what is the tool for you that is going to allow you to make a much deeper connection with yourself.
Yeah, that's it. So then you had several of these experiences. What began to happen inside of you, and what started to shift?
So I got something had awoken in me. It was a curiosity. So I'd asked this question, I'm lost. Please show me what I'm meant to be doing. And this question never got answered. It would just show me these things. And the more I got shown, the more curious I was. And the more I felt that I was being led to something big, something grand. And the more I did medicine, the more I found more medicine. You talk in people, in circles, you do medicines and you find other things. So NN DMT is the one that's in ayahuasca. And you've got 5-MeO DMT, which is the secretions of the Sonoran Desert toad, right? And that is no joke. Your ego gets dissolved immediately. And for me, I feel like it takes you through the dying process. Every cell in my body tingles and I realize, oh God, this is dying. I understand this to be death and that it's happened to me many, many times before. And so the more medicine I've done, it was wild. The more I got to explore aspects of myself, the more I allowed myself to be vulnerable with myself. And the more I got to know myself, and understand myself more and be shown why things had happened the way they had. Yeah.
What was your experience with the revelation of that vulnerability? Was there resistance? Was there curiosity? What was your experience with it?
I think I leaned into it because it was being vulnerable with myself. And at first, it's hard to admit to yourself that you've been scared your whole life, that, a lot of your actions have come from a place of fear and worry. And a lot of my actions have been reactionary to what people were doing from outside of me. They were not coming from a place of authenticity. They were based on what other people were doing to me. So nothing I was doing was really who I was, And so being able to be vulnerable with myself at a level like that, it was new to me. It was fresh. It was scary as well.
Yeah.
It was scary.
Then you had an experience on a B6 armored vehicle reading A New Earth by Tolle.
Oh, this was so wow. So I'm reading Eckhart Tolle's book, and I get to a line where he says, one thing's for sure, and that is that life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. And I read it, and something happened. my whole body shook, and I wasn't taking plant medicine. I wasn't taking anything. In my mind's eye, which is where a lot of these stuff happens, just especially during plant medicine ceremonies, I saw everything unfold. It felt like, and that's what people talk about when they say they saw their life flash before their eyes. I saw it all in what felt like a grand explanation, but apparently it was only a few seconds, if that. But it showed me that particular experience was all about showing me why things had happened. Each person I'd met in my life had led me to this experience. This experience had led me to that person, and that person had led me to this. And it was the understanding that everything had happened for a reason, to get me to understand in this moment self-awareness. So it's the understanding that everything that up until that point I had seen as trauma, or victimhood, why it has happened to me, it's always me, like everything that I'd seen as negative was actually valuable lessons with so much growth embedded in them. And when I was able to see that, it changed everything. Everything had meaning now. And it allowed me to realize that, looking back, what was the lesson in getting shot? What was the lesson in my father not being there? What was the lesson in losing close friends and family members? There's always a lesson. But I'd never done that before because I was so caught up in the event, I wasn't able to see the treasure that was in it.
And all of those experiences then began alchemizing within you, I imagine.
Yeah.
Healing.
Yeah, it was weird. Yeah, your body starts shaking. It was weird because after that, the next day I went out, and I remember going through the motions, picking up the client, driving towards the next location. I'm driving, and after a little while, I become aware of a fizzing in what felt like a fizzing inside of my head, in my brain. And I realized I've not been thinking. And it was like, oh my God, just exists not to think. Like, what a delicious thing it was to happen. Because I'm afflicted, as I guess many of us, by the mind, just like, like every day, just like.
Yeah. I had a similar experience. When I read your example, my awakening experience was that realization that there was a difference between me and my thinking.
Yeah.
And that space, that gap between me and my thinking became the thing that I was insatiable about leaning more further into.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it
wild,
was
isn't it?
for you,
Yeah. Crazy, because when you realize that, I guess it creates a subjective, objective experience. And if I'm the subject and that's the object, I can't be my thoughts. And it's so fascinating, the calm it gives you, like the peace,
Yeah, the liberation.
Yeah.
Because vice versa, when we're so wrapped up in the identity and relating from that place, everything is us. It's so confining. It's so restrictive. We don't realize it when we're in it. But once you have a little bit of that gap, then we realize how confining that space is.
Absolutely.
A few words from an absolute nobody. When did this book arise within you, the desire to write this book and its genesis and all that?
So I guess years ago, when I was in Northern Ireland on Op Banner, I think this was 2003/4. We just stayed in these super sangers, observing our arts and stuff like that. And there are some long stags, like you stay in there for ages. And part of me just started to write poems. Obviously, I would tell too many people this because, surrounded by men, killers. So everybody wants to kill us. It's like, I'm not telling these people I write poems. But a lot of these poems were dark. I've got them tattooed on my body. Some of them were light, but the majority of them were dark. And it was then that I thought, oh, I'm going to write a book about poetry. What would I call it? I know. And that a few words from an absolute nobody, because the feeling is that even though I've written a book, someone could pick that book up anywhere in the world and be like, reading it. I don't know this guy, before they read it, and still afterwards, they still don't know me. They might know my life story, but they don't know me. They've not met me. So ultimately, to that person, I am a nobody. And so that was my understanding of that. It's about anybody can write a book. Someone could pick that up and hopefully feel, if this guy wrote a book and I don't know him, and he's not a celebrity, he's not someone that the whole world knows, he can write a book. He's a nobody. Oh my gosh, I can write a book too. You know, so that was some of the thoughts behind it. I don't know if it hit home, but that was what came up for me when I thought of that title.
Yeah, when you said you would write some dark poetry. What was the nature of some of that dark poetry?
The thing is, a question that during these journeys and what came up was, I don't know. It was just in me. And what I'm realizing now from being on this journey is nothing is just in you. I don't believe coincidences exist. And so the fact that was in me, that was something inside of me that wanted to be nurtured. There was a longing for it. And what I feel, having lived my life up to this point now, I feel that what was calling for attention was a deep sense of loneliness. And even more so than my loneliness, lack of self-love. And so I think a lot of this poems were exploring that. One explores, I guess, what it would be like to take my life. One explores like the darkness and the frustrations that I felt from day to day in my mind. Nothing to do with work. Just, you know, things that were floating around in my mind. Yeah. Feelings.
Yeah. Now as you share this, I'm connecting with my own journey when I was a young man, deeply going through it. And an outlet of mine was also writing, and it was just really dark, you know, and all the pain and all the emotion, the insecurity. Like I would sometimes be writing, you know, you're a piece of shit, you're worthless, you know, like just like getting it out on paper. It was almost my way of just getting it out of inside of me and putting it in front of me. And it was many years that I would write, just get those things out of me in written form. And can be quite therapeutic to do so.
Yeah. It's like, where does it come from? Where does it come from? And why?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. So true. So then what was the writing experience of this book? Did it feel like you were channeling it? Was it, you know, what was the sort of, experience of writing it?
Do you know what? And it's something I've thought about deeply, because for me, it was up until writing this book, I could think of a funny story. I believe a funny story I'd put in the book, or a moment that I'd put in the book, or whatever moment in my life. I could think of it and regurgitate it to you right now without falter. I knew it. I lived it. Bang, it was there ready to go. But I've realized since writing that book, it's really hard to think of some of the stories that I put in there. No doubt if I sit here and think about it, my plant medicine journeys, the loneliness I felt, the sadness, the growing up without a father, getting bullied, I could recall them all, but it's hard to, what I realized is that writing that book was it's like a purging. Like when you get to plant medicine and they say a lot of it's purging. You're getting energy out of your body that's no longer required. So there's a lot of vomiting, body secretions, giggling, crying. And I realized that that's exactly what that book was. It was me purging everything that I'd stored up for so long. Pain, tear, just pains, tears, and negativity and whatever I'd stored up in my body. It all got purged into paper. But it took for me to write that book to realize that if I knew that, I'd have written a book years ago. I think everybody should write a book. And also is to realize that my thing, why I love transformational coaching, what I've got from it is that everybody holds a piece to the puzzle. Like, what is life? And I know I don't have all the answers. And so if we was to write books like, the old adage, everyone's got a book in them, it's like we could start putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And we could all understand, or have a better chance of understanding what life actually is.
Mm. Mm. Your journey is incredible, you know, from the inner city to war zones to South America, and then eventually becoming an author and a transformational coach. Can you share, before we go into the transformational coach bit, when you reflect on that arc, on that journey, what are some thoughts that come to you? What are some feelings?
On the whole journey.
Yeah, what if, before we go at being a transformational coach, what are
Yeah,
your thoughts on the journey as a whole, looking back?
phenomenal. I look back on it now and I think, my God, I'm so lucky to be alive. What a gift. But only because I'm aware of it. Like before this, I was just, moping around, hard done by, oh, but every day is a gift now. It's like I've been given this amazing, precious gift of life. And because I'm aware of it now, I get to do things that I would have never been able to do without the awareness of it. Like coaching. Also at the moment, I'm in a course to become a death doula. So I'm seeing through the things that I want to do, there's a part of me that wants, I feel I'm in a position to be able to give back to life. And that isn't a place of financial freedom. It's a place of abundance within me. I'm in a position to sit with someone and listen to them, help them purge their negativity. I'm in a position to be able to create a space with someone, a healing space, right? Practice two, not to go right into the coaching now, but nurture a healing space. I'm in the position to be able to do that with somebody and to help this person purge or get out what it is that needs to come out. And for me also, I get great joy from that. And through me, I'm able to, share energy with the person I might be coaching with. And so the whole journey is phenomenal. I look back on life and I just think, whatever it is that has created life, it's just wow. I don't have any words for it. Just wow.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to have been given this opportunity to feel all the suffering, to feel all of the pain. There's this movie called Collateral Beauty. And I realized that for me, the understanding of collateral beauty is when you realize that it took all of the pain, all of the suffering, the sadness, the love, the joy, all of them are important. And it took all of them to get to this moment where you're able to awaken and realize, oh, it's the collateral beauty, that's what life is, to realize that I need everything, the contrast, I need it all to experience the fullness of life,
Yeah. It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so
joyful.
true. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. How did you get into transformational coaching?
So I guess I'd show up for some time that I'd wanted to be a coach. But every time I looked online and found a course, it didn't seem to resonate. And then I did more and more plant medicine. And all of a sudden, I think once I'd done most of my plant medicine journey, and I was in a much better place inside myself, I went back online randomly to look for coaching. And then Transformational Coaching Center came up. And TCC came up. And it's like, this is what I've been looking for. So again, you don't get shown things until you're ready to see them, And so I inquired a bit, I looked and I realized this is what I want to do. So then I enrolled on the course.
What did you get out of the course?
What did I get out of the course? 9 beautiful practices that I guess a lot of them I was practicing in my life already, but I'm able to use them to methodically see what areas of my life I am doing them. And I got the understanding that really you don't need to be a doctor to be a healer, a surgeon. And that's taking nothing away from those guys. I'm not a surgeon, I'm not a doctor, but it's the understanding that if I can just sit with another being, another soul, and share energy, it's a powerful thing that people can truly heal. That's what I got. Some of what I got.
Yeah. And then how did you Where did becoming a death doula come in?
So I felt like a lot of my journeys in plant medicine have always been about death and dying. And I feel like being in the military, any military, you're working on one side of death. Whether you do anything or you don't, if you go to war, that's going to be one of the options that are available to you. And I feel like there's a part of me during my medicine journeys, I was always shown it's okay to die. It's okay to die. This is why I got it tattooed here. I had a meditation. It's just like, hey, it's okay to die. Because one of the things I was always worried about was dying myself and not my death. It was causing pain to my family and my loved ones, and it's like, I realized that if you plant medicine and I do a lot of meditating now, you realize, hey, it's okay. It's going to cause people a lot of pain. Assuming that there are people out there who love me. but the point is that that's their journey. I think what death does, an aspect of death, what it does is it offers us the opportunity to awaken. That's not to say everybody's going to awaken from the loss of a loved one, but you're offered the opportunity to. Because you experience a mini death, right, by someone that is obviously a great part of your life that your identity is intertwined with. So when they die, you lose that part of yourself. It feels like it's dead. And so you suffer a death. And when you start suffering the mini deaths, you begin to ask yourselves questions, right? Who am I without this person in my life? So that's what took me into death and dying. And I'd meditate and I have things come up, and it just dawned on me one day that, the ones we love and care about have to die, so that we can begin to ask ourselves the questions that really matter. And then we have to die so that we can give the same experience to the ones who love and care about us.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that as a death doula, I will be able to accompany people on that very intimate journey towards the end, and just be a beacon of light, be a presence. And I find it very much like coaching.
Oh yeah.
Nurturing the healing space. Yes.
Yeah.
This is part of what's led me down the road to wanting to become a death doula.
Yeah. A dear teacher, spiritual teacher of mine, Muji, speaks about dying before we die.
Yeah.
And you technically have two different titles, transformational coach and death doula. And yet in ways you are supporting or assisting the transition in both cases, right? Because transformational coaching is so much about dying to who we were and being born to someone new. And obviously the dying of the physical body goes through that same metamorphosis, just in a physical way rather than we can call it spiritual or psychological way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just think a lot of this stuff I'm doing now, they come so hand in hand.
Yeah.
They overlap, and a lot of it comes down to, you ain't got to be anybody else. You just got to be you. Just turn up, be you. Because just being me is going to help. If someone's only going to have me as their death doula or have me as a coach, if I'm resonating with them, they don't have to be fake. Just turn up and be me. They be them, and the magic gets done.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. If we can go back to the question of, or connect back to Ricardo as a 14, 15, 16-year-old, and you can speak to him today, what might you tell him from this point of view?
Yeah, I think I would tell him everything's going to be all right. Everything. I would give him a cuddle. I'd give him a cuddle, and I'd say, hey, it all works out. Everything's going to be all right. I'd say nothing's worth taking your life over, because everything that happens has meaning. Yeah. I would say, don't take everything so personal. And I would tell him that I love him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually incredible when looked at through this lens that you were close to death throughout your entire life, or had a relationship to it. As a young man thinking about taking your own life in war, that possibility always being there, getting into plant medicine and that being the death of the ego, transformational coaching furthering that process, and then a death doula. There is an arc there of you
Absolutely.
being this messenger of death in in a beautiful, light way when seen through the right lens, and it's almost like your life experience has brought you to this point in time, of course. And because of what you had to traverse, because you've been close to death in every possible way, you carry a wisdom that really can support so many people on this journey.
Thank you. This is the hope. This is the hope. This is the hope. I think one of the things that makes me look at this even more is I look at my mum, she's getting older. I'm getting older now, and I think my mum's going to die one of these days. And that's one of the deaths I expect. My dad's already dead. I've lost family members, but I think, what about the deaths I don't expect? I've had a friend who died just randomly from a heart attack. And I think I'm going to be offered the opportunity again and again to be with grief, pain and suffering, and so I want to be in a position where I can face that grief and be able to be vulnerable again, and be there for other people who are going to have to face it as well.
Yeah, the inevitability that we all need to face.
Yeah.
If you could leave listeners with one invitation, so something that they can reflect on in their own practice in their own transformational journey, what might that be?
I guess it would be to see everything that happened as something that has value. So whatever it is that you're struggling with, that you're going through, maybe ask yourself, is there a lesson that I can find here? And if there is, what is it?
Is there anything that we haven't touched upon that would be worth sharing before we close?
No. I guess I'd just say, I guess we've got one life to live, so live it as best you can.
Yeah. Oh,
live
man.
it as best you can.
Absolutely. Man, what a gift you are. What a light in this world you are. What an inspiration your story is. It's been such a pleasure to be here in the space with you. Thank you for sharing as openly, as vulnerably as you have with me and with us today.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's been an absolute pleasure having this session with you. I feel like it's been an awesome coaching session. Honestly, I feel energized to go and do something.
Yeah, let's go. Let's get it.
Let's go.
Thank you so much for being with us today. To learn more about today's guest, visit our podcast landing page at www.podcast.centerfortransformationalcoaching.com. You'll find links to their website, social media, and anything else they might want to share there. And if you're curious to explore more about our work, our trainings, or the deep coaching approach, you'll find everything at www.centerfortransformationalcoaching.com. A new episode of this podcast releases every 2 weeks, so please subscribe wherever you listen to stay up to date. Until next time, stay present, embrace love, and continue sensing into what life is calling you toward. See you soon.